Topic: The Lost Root Good and its Trace. YouTube lecture. Topic: The Lost Root Good and its Traces in Language, Thought, and the Idea of Creation. Today I want to talk about a word that seems to have disappeared from the Russian language. The word vanished, dissolved, became invisible. And yet its traces remain almost everywhere. That word is good. And if we try to restore it as an ancient semantic root, many things suddenly begin falling into place. As if the central gear inside an old machine has finally been rediscovered. We are used to treating words as separate dictionary objects. But ancient language may have functioned differently. It may have been not a collection of isolated words, but a network of meaning impulses. Meaning was not rigidly fixed. It spread in waves, like sound, like vibration. And good looks exactly like such a primordial impulse. Today, the word good has almost disappeared in Russian as an independent concept. But it continues living inside countless other words, like an underground river beneath a city. Gudet, Gudak, Gudany, good, God. And a question emerges. Could good have once represented one of humanity's oldest ideas of force, movement, sound, vibration, and perhaps even creation itself? Could good be a prototype of the word God? Especially if we remember the opening of the Old Testament Genesis. In the beginning. But what exactly existed in the beginning? A word? A sound? An impulse? A vibration? Almost all ancient cosmologies speak of a primordial oscillation. A primordial sounding. An original resonance. And here good begins to look not simply like a word, but like a description of the state from which the world emerged. Good is not stillness. Good is process. It is the trembling of matter. The low primordial rumble of existence. When a transformer operates, it hums. When a gigantic mechanism moves, it hums. When energy flows, a resonance appears. Even modern people instinctively associate humming with power and the presence of force. It is interesting that the English word good means morally good or positive. But perhaps originally good was not merely a moral judgment. Perhaps it meant aligned, harmonious, functional, attuned to the world, connected to the greater flow. In other words, that which hums correctly. And suddenly the connection between good and God no longer feels accidental. Perhaps ancient perceptions of the divine were connected not to personality, but to a condition of cosmic harmony. A state of universal resonance. God then becomes not merely a character or deity, but a vast humming structure of being itself. The world as oscillation. The world as vibration. The world as an endless resonance of existence. And this makes the word gudak especially fascinating. What is a gudak? It is a signal, an impulse, an announcement of presence. A gudak says, I am here. I exist. I am entering space. In essence, a gudok is an act of manifestation. That is why ships, trains, and factories use horns and sirens. Large systems announce their presence through vibration. A gudok does not merely create sound. It marks reality. It cuts through space. And perhaps ancient good was connected precisely to this idea. Manifestation through vibration. It is also fascinating to look at the word gudet to hum. Humming is not speech. But it is not chaos either. It is an intermediate state. As if matter is already trying to speak but has not yet formed words. Hum is pre-language. And this raises a remarkable possibility. What if humanity's earliest language was based not on words, but on sonic states? Not on strict definitions, but on sensations of vibration? Then language roots would not originally have been descriptive. They would have been physical. Not names of things, but models of processes. For example, TR friction, pressure, hardening. L flow, line, movement. R energy, impulse, manifestation. Good, a general vibrational process. And suddenly language begins to resemble not a dictionary, but a physics of consciousness. Another point is extremely important. Modern linguistics is largely based on comparative methods. Languages are compared against one another. But far less attention is given to the possibility that ancient roots may have been connected not merely through random phonetic evolution, but through fundamental patterns of human perception itself. Certain sounds may have survived because they naturally corresponded to lived experiences. Good is the experience of vibration. TR is the experience of friction. L is the sensation of flow. K is fixation or edge. In this approach, language emerges not as arbitrary convention, but as a map of consciousness interacting with reality. And then many mysterious similarities between languages stop appearing accidental. It is also interesting to consider the word goodbye. Formally, it means farewell, but inside it still contains good. Almost like a wish for a proper path. A harmonious continuation. A preservation of alignment with the right flow. In fact, good turns out to be an astonishingly fundamental word. Goodwill. Goods. The good. Everywhere there remains not merely morality, but the idea of suitability, harmony, and proper systemic alignment. Now let us return to Genesis. Let there be light. Usually this is understood as a command, but perhaps originally it represented not an order, but the initiation of resonance itself. The world is not created instantly. It unfolds, like the vibration of a string, like the spreading of a deep hum, like the propagation of a wave. And then God in Genesis becomes not merely a personality, but the primordial source of cosmic vibration, the primordial good, the original sounding of existence itself. And this makes the disappearance of the word good from Russian especially intriguing. Sometimes the disappearance of a central root destroys an entire network of meaning. People continue using words, but stop perceiving their hidden relationships. Words become separate bricks instead of parts of one structure. But if the forgotten root is restored, the structure begins appearing again. And suddenly, Gudak, Gudani, good, God, hum, Udet, begin to feel like fragments of one ancient semantic field, like remnants of a very old system of thought. Perhaps ancient humanity perceived the world not as a collection of objects, but as an ocean of processes and vibrations. And language reflected exactly that. Not objects, but states of movement. Not things, but flows. And then ancient people heard the world differently. The world was not silent. The world hummed. End of lecture.